Hello, and welcome to this episode of Probation Matters, a podcast by the Probation Board for Northern Ireland, which tells the stories of how probation works within the justice system to change people's lives and help create safer communities. I'm Lisa Maginnis, and it's a pleasure to be joined by Leona Tate, one of our probation officers based in our Magabry prison team. It's really timely to be talking to you, Leona, today during the celebration of Hidden Heroes, a day used by the Butler Trust each year to recognise the role played by people in probation, prisons and youth justice, and highlight the impact they make on people's lives. Firstly, I want to ask you, Leona, a bit about your job and what you do on a daily basis. What's it like to be a probation officer in prison?
Interesting and chaotic, and I mean that in the best way. I started off as an inspired probation officer in the Belfast team, which is working with women, so female probation officers working with female offenders. And that was a great experience, but I thought I needed a bit more, which is why I looked into then going to working with men in a prison. So why not two birds, one stone and go to Magabry? So I've been there from February of this year, and I'm now part of the lifer team, so I work with men who've been given life sentences. Very interesting work, very different from what I was doing with the women. Now I'm focusing on parole commissioners, doing oral hearings and reports, and looking at phasing the men back into the community, which is a big part of our role. So very different, but very interesting. We're still going. It's a good journey.
So it's a complex job, Leona, and a tough job at times. So what made you want to be a probation officer, and how have you found the different areas you've worked in?
I became a social worker to become a probation officer, so this was my go-to from the start. I was very interested in the criminal justice system. I didn't want to work anywhere else, so I came straight here, straight out of uni, and I've been working my way through ever since, which has been great. So straight into the Inspired Women's team, and that definitely was an area that I didn't even know existed, really. I didn't know that team existed before I came into probation, and it was a great team to start off with. It was really, really eye-opening. It just highlights some of the complexities that we have to deal with as probation officers. But I mean, everybody that comes into this job, you come into it because you want to do something to help people, you want to try and make a difference, and whether that's a minor thing that you do in one day or if it's a big thing that you do, for example, in the prison, helping somebody maybe get their licence, which is a great thing to be doing. There's different areas for us to be looking into, different things that we do in different teams, so again, moving from one team to another, it just shows the different areas, the different focuses of each team, and not everything is the same. Not, me being a probation officer in Inspire was not the same as me being a probation officer in Magabry now, so I think that's what I like the most about probation as well. There's a lot of different areas you can move into, move around, get experience with different people.
The Criminal Justice Inspectorate recently published its follow-up review on probation practice and found there had been improvement, although of course we've still got more to do. In terms of our own practice, has your time working in probation helped you think about things like professional curiosity and how best to risk manage people?
Absolutely, yes. Professional curiosity is our bread and butter, really, isn't it? So that's always follow your gut, that sort of feeling. So that's usually what starts the professional curiosity, of a wee inkling of what's something's going on here. We need to investigate a bit further, which usually then leads to various questions that helps us find out the information that we need. And the more that we know, the more that we push and get answers from people, the more we can protect them, the more we can put things in place to help protect others. The service user included, but absolutely, professional curiosity is definitely number one. That's just a better way of saying follow your gut. But that's where we find out all of our information, and especially in the likes of Belfast, where everything's so small and interconnected. There's a lot of things that link over, and there's just different areas that we need to know about people's lives. Obviously, the main thing that we have in probation is protecting the public, one of our main areas of what we do. Professional curiosity is definitely a massive part of that.
And do you find it helps then to reflect yourself on your practice and reflect with colleagues around how you approach things, or if you're in that situation where you feel you've got to ask some difficult questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Being a part of a good team is probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things in any social work job, but obviously my experiences with probation and the two teams that I've been part of, thankfully, have been great. But having that team that you can use as a sounding board, going in, asking, well, this is what's happened, I'm going to do this, what do you think? Or maybe you don't have an idea of what you're going to do and you're thinking, I'm just not sure how to progress. Using the team then to help you with that. But it's also those people that you're working with understand what you're going through. They do it day in, day out with you. So whenever you're having those difficulties, there's a very high chance that somebody has had the same difficulty and is able to talk to you about it and say, well, this is what I did. And then you can amend things, obviously, for the person you're working with, because obviously we focus on person-centred working. So it's really great to have that experience with other experienced members of staff, other people who have that sort of enthusiasm and understanding of the job.
So as an organisation, we're trying to move towards implementing a trauma-informed approach to how we look after our staff, but also how we deal with people who've offended, and how important do you think that is?
Yeah. I suppose that links back in then, really, doesn't it, to the team? Because, again, the team would be the main thing that I would look at in terms of trauma-informed, especially when we're thinking about trauma-informed approaches with staff, and sort of looking after ourselves. Most professionals in this organisation are aware that the service users that we work with come with a long history of trauma. The trauma usually links into their offending behaviour, so that's something then that we're dealing with and unpicking on a daily basis, which then means obviously that we're almost picking up second-hand trauma because we're listening to things day in, day out, reading things that the normal person on the street wouldn't be. It can be quite heavy stuff. So you need that support there from the team, from management, to be able to say, I've heard this today, it was really hard, I just need to talk to somebody about it. And it's not that we're always looking for answers, maybe. It's just, I need to verbalise this and just tell you what I've heard. It's heavy. And whenever you get it out, that helps. We're very big into talking. So that's the main part of our job. Talking about things helps. So it really is. In order for us to understand service users better, we have to understand their trauma, which then obviously affects us. So then we have to look after ourselves in that regard.
And you don't necessarily want to be taking that home. You can have your colleagues there for support. Are there other support mechanisms in place for you as a practitioner? You already talked about your colleagues' support. What other supports would you see as a practitioner are available to you?
Well, I know that probation does offer, outside counselling and things, which I think is very helpful. And I think that at some point in everybody's career, I'm sure everyone's used or will have used or is going to use counselling. Like I said, we're dealing with heavy stuff and you can't go home and tell partners and family about that. We've got confidentiality for one, but it's not, you just don't want to repeat that either. It's people's business and you're thinking about how you have to respond to it and carry it. You want to put that on other people, But outside counselling is definitely something that a lot of people will most likely go through at some point in their career. And then it's also, just the normal things of going home, leaving work at work, going home, seeing family and friends, making sure you're taking that time to not think about work, because we can't carry this with us all the time or else we wouldn't be very good at our jobs. So, making sure that we're seeing family and friends, making sure we're doing all of our hobbies, going out exercising and making sure that we're not focusing on our job 100% of the time, because the burnout rate would be incredibly high if we were to do that, we wouldn't be of any use. So making sure that when you're going home, you're home and you're there with family and not thinking about bringing things back to the house.
As I said at the start of the podcast today, it is Hidden Heroes Day, which is about recognising and raising awareness about the role of probation, youth justice and prison. And there's no doubt many people don't know exactly what it is that we do in probation. So what message would you have for the public about the role of PBNI?
I think the big one is that probation is not just probation officers. There's all of these other roles and cogs that are all part of this massive machine. We are a small organisation, I suppose, in comparison to the others, but we do a very big job in terms of making ourselves known, for one, which is obviously why we're doing things like podcasts and stuff, which I think is great. But one of the big roles is helping to rehabilitate offenders and people who have offended to get back into the community and protecting the public while we do it. I think people need to be aware that it's not just coming in and lifting people out of prison, which I think is what most people will think of when they think of probation. It's about supporting, and not just supporting in getting a house, it's supporting emotionally, mentally, dealing with the likes of addictions and helping people get their families back together, helping with social services and children. For some of the service users we work with, we are the only person that they see, maybe, in a week, the only person they speak to, the only person they can come to and talk about their problems with. We're the ones with the connections to signpost and link in other organisations. So it's not just about taking people out of prison, putting them in the community or giving them all of these rules that they have to follow. That is obviously part of it as well, but it's a lot more holistic, I think, than people realise. We are, for some, the most and only support. It's looking at every aspect of somebody's life to see how can we help them. It's not just about offending. Everything leads, there's a whole lot of stuff that's around the offending, usually emotional and mental, dealing with addictions and other professionals. It's not just one thing that we're looking at. Obviously our main focus is the offending and risk, but it's not just that. There's a whole scope of things that we have to look at as well. And like I said, it's not just probation officers that are doing that. So there's a wide range of professionals that work within probation that help make the organisation run the way it does and help other people.
Thanks very much for giving us an insight into your work and your role as a probation officer. Find out more about probation and how it changes people's lives for safer communities by visiting our website at pbni.org.uk or by following us on our social media platforms: X, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube.